Hi there Waltoneers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and today I want to talk about Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets. As previously it was announced that this was going to be opening in summer, but now we have the official opening date. So I don't want to bury the lead any further in this video, as it's going to be officially opening on May 26th, 2026 at Disney's Hollywood Studios, the day after the Memorial Day weekend, and it's actually the same day as the official kickoff to the Cool Kids Summer at Walt Disney World, which will be taking place from May 26th through till September 8th. And so May 26th, that's the official opening date. You can add it to your calendars right now for Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets. But I also want to make a note of a few other opening dates, as on May 3rd, you've also got Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which is going to be reopening at Walt Disney World following its lengthy refurbishment, which will see all new special effects within that attraction when it reopens. Then on May 22nd, Mando and Grogu are going to be joining Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run at not just Hollywood Studios but also Disneyland as well for all new missions within that attraction. And this is actually the same day as when the movie The Mandalorian and Grogu is released into theatres. Then on May 26th, we've got Soarin' Across America, which is going to be debuting at Epcot as part of the official kickoff to Cool Kids Summer at Walt Disney World. And then a little bit later, it's going to be debuting at Disney California Adventure on July 2nd, just ahead of the 4th of July 250th anniversary celebrations of America. And so those are some important dates to make a note of. But now I want to talk about all of the Muppet makeover mayhem that's going to be coming to Rock and Roller Coaster. And I want to begin by talking about the new details that have been confirmed for the attraction, then do a construction update on the Courtyard, as quite a lot's changing out there, and then also I want to talk about some of the rumours and speculation swirling around about what else might potentially be featured within this attraction. So with all of that being said, let's begin with probably the most important part of all of this, and that's the music, as it wouldn't be Rock and Roller Coaster without a fantastic soundtrack. And Disney have actually released the full track list for the on-ride soundtrack as part of Rock and Roller Coaster. And the 5 songs are going to be covered by the Electric Mayhem or the Muppets, or a combination of the two within the actual song itself, bringing all that signature Muppet madness to the soundtrack as you're riding Rock and Roller Coaster. And so those are the 5 songs that will form the on-ride roller coaster soundtrack, but none of these are going to be made public before the attraction opens on May 26th. So Disney invited some of us along to a special listening session of 2 of these songs, and the 2 songs we got to listen to were Song 2 and Born to be Wild. And so as you can see in the footage, we got to put the headphones on and listen to the 2 songs, but no one else around us could hear what we were hearing. So you can imagine it was just as awkward as it looks, in a way that no one else around you can hear it. And so I'm going to do my best at giving a quick description of the music, but as with all things when it comes to music, it's very hard to describe it, and it's even harder when it is the Muppets performing the actual soundtrack itself. So I will say, out of the 2 songs that we listened to, Song 2 and Born to be Wild, I will say that Song 2, I can easily see this being a favourite of most people riding this attraction, as it's kind of a perfect match for Rock and Roller Coaster. If you know Song 2 by Blur, it begins with that woohoo at the very beginning of it, and it is Animal doing the woohoo at the beginning. So imagine that in the launch sequence for Rock and Roller Coaster, going from 0 to 57 miles an hour at 2.8 seconds, with Animal screaming woohoo as you ride off into the rest of the roller coaster. It's a perfect match for this attraction. But even Born to be Wild by Steppenwolf, featuring Camilla the Chicken, going into it, I thought, oh, it's going to be chicken noises throughout the whole thing. It's going to become like a chicken roller coaster. You know, there's not going to be any lyrics, but in actual fact, you can hear the lyrics. The lyrics are there, so you can sing along to Born to be Wild, but the chicken noises are used for comedic effect throughout that song. So it's not just going to be a chicken in your ear the entire time, you know, clucking away, because I think that would get kind of annoying, but it's used for comedic effect in the best Muppety way possible. Then there's other songs on this track list that we didn't get to listen to. Love Roller Coaster is one that stands out, because that was a song that was actually used within Cosmic Rewind's marketing. That was used in a commercial back in 2022, and I think a lot of people expected that to be one of the songs featured within Cosmic Rewind, but it didn't happen. And so to finally see that song, Love Roller Coaster, featured on a roller coaster at Walt Disney World with the Muppets performing it, no less, I think that's a fantastic move, to be honest. I think that's a great song to add to the soundtrack there. We've got Rock Rock Till You Drop by Def Leppard, which will bring that rock and roll legend credentials and status to this attraction, with a great song there added to the track list. And then Walking on Sunshine, I think, is the one that will probably raise the most eyebrows just thinking about that on Rock and Roller Coaster, but I'm willing to reserve judgment until I hear the final product on the actual roller coaster itself. It's an upbeat song, and I like the song as it is, but we'll see how they cover it in terms of making it more Muppety and giving it a more rock and roll sound to that song itself. Now, when it comes to imagining what this sounds like, I think the best way to go about this is using the Muppets Mayhem soundtrack that you can find on most streaming services or even on YouTube. I'll put links down below to some of the covers of the songs that they did for that series. And although this is a solid track list, I will say that I would have liked to see a Queen song on this attraction, because we all know that there's a history there between the Muppets and Queen, and they performed that Bohemian Rhapsody cover years ago that went viral and got hundreds of millions of views. And I think it would have been great to see Don't Stop Me Now featured on this soundtrack. I think that would have been great, but you know, who knows, we might see it in the future, as in the Disney Parks blog article it is mentioned that the Electric Mayhem have been working on some bonus tracks, so potentially we might see those make it into the attraction. We might see something new come into the attraction later on, or there might be a surprise there on opening day that hasn't been released as part of a full track list yet. But I'll say that I think that the track list they've got at the moment is solid. But it's not just on the ride where the music is featured, as there's also music throughout the queue and in the courtyard as well. And previously, when it was Aerosmith, that music was iconic rock from the 70s, 80s and 90s featured within the courtyard and in the queue area. So it'll be interesting to see if they stick with that approach for Rock and Roller Coaster, or personally, I would like them to use some of the music that they've already done as covers of, you know, iconic songs. There were covers of All You Need Is Love by the Beatles, Rock and Roll All Night by Kiss, God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, and then they've also done lots of other covers in the past throughout the history of the Muppets. So it'd be nice to see all of those songs and some original Muppet songs make it into the background music and also within the queue music for the attraction as well. But speaking of the courtyard, let's do a construction update, as quite a bit's happened here. And the first thing is the archway that leads into the courtyard. The limousine that sits there upside down has received a psychedelic new design inspired by the Electric Mayhem, and it's very reminiscent of the artwork for the attraction, where we can see the ride vehicles feature that same sort of design. So potentially what we're seeing here with the paintwork is what the roller coaster trains within the attraction is going to be rethemed to and reskinned to have that groovy, psychedelic new design. And what was unusual about this is it happened very quickly, but it also happened in plain sight and happened stage by stage within guest view. And the reason for that is because Disney clearly had to work on it overnight, because they couldn't close down the courtyard, because the courtyard itself is the way that guests get to Villains Unfairly Ever After. So they couldn't close that walkway because they needed direct access to that show, and that show is very popular at Hollywood Studios. So they didn't want to close down the courtyard at any time. And even though it is just a paint job, it really does add a lot in terms of theming to the archway there. And then the next thing is the larger-than-life electric guitar, which is currently behind scrims for the repainting of this icon. And you can see the primer that has been applied to the guitar itself, but this isn't actually going to be changing colour. This is going to be remaining red in its colour, but then it will also have a psychedelic new design added to the guitar to make it more Electric Mayhem themed. But I've got to say, what is interesting is part of the building over to the side where the exit for the roller coaster is, that's been painted grey. Now, I don't know if that's a primer for another coat of paint to that tan colour, but if that's been changed to grey, that kind of bluish grey, it might be that they're making other changes to the exterior facade here, which haven't been reflected in the artwork that's been released, and they've made different design choices since they released that artwork, and that's what we'll see show up on May 26th. But it's certainly possible over the next couple of weeks we might see more theming show up. And the kind of theming that I'm expecting are things like "Animal was here" painted on a wall maybe, or certain Muppet graffiti or spilled paint, you know, like they used to have within Muppet Courtyard and Muppet Vision 3D, and just using a lot of the design choices that they used to have for Muppet Vision 3D, copying that and using it within the queue space for Rock and Roller Coaster, you know, like they used to have on the lights within the Muppet Vision 3D queue, you know, Muppifying that in many ways, or bringing over some of the props from Muppet Courtyard. I'm hoping they've saved a lot of them and we see them show up within the queue for Rock and Roller Coaster or elsewhere within the Courtyard, or just extra signage and little Muppet references throughout the whole thing. I think they need to do that kind of stuff, but the thing is with this is they don't want to close down the Courtyard because they want to maintain access to Villains and Fairly Ever After. So anything they do implement within the Courtyard need to be quick enough to be installed overnight. So I think we should keep our eyes peeled for that sort of stuff and hope that there's more Muppet theming within the Courtyard itself, as this is going to be the new Muppet Courtyard. And then we've got to talk about theming and the animatronics within the attraction. We've had it confirmed that the 3 animatronics within the pre-show artwork that you can see of the recording studio, Scooter and the 2 penguins, will be animatronics. So those will be the other side of the glass, but they'll be animatronics within the pre-show there. And then Kermit and Miss Piggy will appear via digital media on the screens, and the Electric Mayhem will be featured digitally as well on the other side. And what's interesting about the artwork for the pre-show segment is it's actually inverted the whole concept of what it was with Aerosmith. So previously we used to walk into the kind of recording studio space where they had all the instruments and we were on the other side of glass there, whereas now we're kind of walking into the sound technician space and seeing the Electric Mayhem in their recording studio space, the other side of the screens. And speaking of the story, the official description has been slightly updated, as it was originally mentioned that the way that we're going to be getting to the concert on the other side of town for Electric Mayhem would involve Muppet Labs, and it's going to be using a new type of technology that Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker have developed called LIMO, which is an acronym that stands for Lengthy Immediate Motion Object, or LIMO, and it's going to take us on that journey over to the other side of Hollywood for the Electric Mayhem concert. Now, the fact that they're using Muppet Labs within this, I suspect that we'll probably see Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and Beaker show up on this safety spiel screens just above the loading area for the attraction. And Disney have previously mentioned that additional animatronics may be revealed later. That was something they said last year. You know that I previously said last year that I would like to see Statler and Waldorf, the animatronics from Muppet Vision 3D from the balcony there, feature within this Rock and Roller Coaster attraction. I hope they've saved those animatronics, given them a bit of maintenance, and they could use those within the attraction. And the way that I originally envisioned it would be them kind of stood on the bridge above the launch tunnel for Rock and Roller Coaster, you know, making jokes at our expense. I think that would be a great use of those animatronics. But I also think it would be great for them to feature at the end of the attraction, kind of how at the end of a Muppet show, they always kind of come back to Statler and Waldorf to make a couple of jokes at the Muppets' expense at the end of the show. Doing that at the end of Rock and Roller Coaster would also be a way to kind of wrap up the whole experience as well. So I'm just hoping that they've kept those animatronics and they are going to find a new home within Rock and Roller Coaster. Now, there's also been mention of some guest cameos within this attraction. Now, I don't know where these guest cameos are going to show up, but the guest cameos that have been confirmed are Awkwafina, Danny Trejo, Darren Criss, John Stamos, Neil Patrick Harris, Travis Barker, Yvette Nicole Brown, Wayne Brady, and Weird Al Yankovic. So those are the guest cameos that have been confirmed, but who knows, much like the songs that have been confirmed, they said there's some bonus tracks. Maybe we'll see a few surprise celebrity cameos within this attraction as well. I know there's no end to the amount of celebrities who want to work with the Muppets, so hopefully we could see some great extra guest cameos within the attraction as well. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the potential of maybe seeing a holiday overlay to this attraction. And previously, back in 2020, I said that it would be great to see Jingle Bell Rock and Roller Coaster as a holiday overlay. But now that they have actually gone back in and redesigned Rock and Roller Coaster around the Muppets, I feel like this is the time that they could do a holiday overlay for this attraction. And, you know, as we saw with Cosmic Rewind, when that opened in 2022, that has a holiday overlay that was also designed for that attraction with an original song for Cosmic Rewind there. So potentially could we be seeing Jingle Bell Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets for maybe Jollywood Nights? I think it's definitely a possibility, and have, you know, the Electric Mayhem singing some classic Christmas songs in rock versions of those songs, or potentially maybe even do Muppet Christmas Carol music as part of a holiday overlay to Rock and Roller Coaster. And if they did this for Jollywood Nights, it would be a way to, you know, make it make sense from a revenue standpoint that it is just for a ticketed event, but it would also be a huge boost to the attendance of Jollywood Nights and make it something really special that a lot of people who are, you know, Muppet Christmas Carol fans, which I am also, would love to go and experience Rock and Roller Coaster whilst listening to different variations of the Muppet Christmas Carol music on the Muppet Rock and Roller Coaster. So I think holiday overlay, we should keep our eyes peeled for that. I think that's more of a possibility now that they are doing a retheme of Rock and Roller Coaster to the Muppets. So with that being said for today, it's over to you, the Waltoniers. I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets? What other songs would you like to see included as part of a track list for this attraction that would have made your shortlist in terms of this on-ride soundtrack? And also be sure to subscribe down below, check out the rest of the videos on this channel, and also give this video a massive thumbs up if you've enjoyed it for today. And I'd also like to say a massive thank you to the official Waltonier Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel. It's greatly appreciated. And also a special thank you to the official Waltonier Gold members that you can see here on the screen right now, as well as official Waltonier Diamond members JC Russell, Justin Tupper, and Tim and Stephen Parsons. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.